Well, we'd like to call to order the City of Bothell Planning Commission meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019, at 6 p.m. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioners Cabe, Pystrup, and Moreau Cook, whom are all absent and excused. Now we're at the time in the meeting where anyone here has a chance to speak to the Planning Commission with regards to anything not on the agenda tonight. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record.
I'm here with apologies because I have to leave, so it is on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
But I'm Pat Pierce, 10,001 Northeast 190th. I'm here about the maximum density and intensity plan. And I do apologize because I went around the neighborhood and talked to everybody and did a handout that indicated it might be a rezone, but it isn't. It's the density. And we went through this last year with the density caps potentially being raised down on 185th and 527. And so this is the same problem that the neighborhood, which I call Woody's First Edition, is between 104th and 190th, 527, 100, you know, and did I get it all? 185th. So this neighborhood faced this last year. The council did not raise the caps in the last year's issue. They were the properties on 185th and 527 that are in the downtown plan. But and then looking at this, I would really like to request that you take our, we have an overlay on the lower Maywood area. Take that overlay and add to it a statement that we would remain under the current zoning without the density, the raise in density. And because it is a big issue to us, we're a fairly tight-packed neighborhood, and it goes back to the beginnings of Bothell. There's a Bothell house that's there. And there's several other older houses. And we have a lot of affordable housing there, a lot of ADUs, smaller houses. Mine's 850 square feet, small lots. One of my neighbors is 5,000 square feet. So we'd like to keep that neighborhood as it continues to grow and change, but not in a dramatic form. I mean, it gets denser all the time, but it's within the ability of the streets and everything to take care of it. So if you could consider changing our overlay to leave us at the current situation rather than have the density caps go, or density caps raised, or actually go on. The FARs, I think they call it now. So that's it. Thank you, and my apologies to everyone for my mistake and also having to leave. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments. Anybody have a question for Ms. Pierce? Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just before Ms. Pierce leaves, I just want to clarify if you're addressing the item on public hearing this evening.
Yes.
That is setting a minimum density and intensity, not a maximum.
Well, the way I read it, it was raising it.
And it's not raising any density limits, and it doesn't affect any of the residential areas that you're referring to.
Okay, because they talked about the zoning. We are, like, I have a 6,000 square foot lot. Other people are at 4,000, 2,005, you know, all that kind of stuff.
This is looking just at the RAC zoning and just in specific areas.
Okay, well, I missed that part.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Michael.
And we'd be happy to talk to you some more about that if you have some specific comments.
Thank
and
you.
You may be getting emails from people.
That's good.
Okay.
So
thank you.
so if you do have any other public comments and are able to stay around, please, we'll have a time to public comment on something on the agenda later on. But so I'm looking basically for people in the public who have something not on the agenda tonight.
Nope, it's still the same thing. I don't really want to make a comment. I just wanted to ask based on what he said.
Oh, wait, can you state your name for the record and
Lisa
address?
Vorwerk.
Okay.
I live at 10139 Northeast 186th, right around the corner. Is there a map in that information packet that we can reference to look at what you're talking about?
Oh, may not be.
That's all I wanted to, just wanted to ask for more information.
I don't know if there is. We can provide one.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a problem.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, yeah, there is right there.
Yes. It's page 4.
Thank you.
So is there anybody else in the audience who has anything not on the agenda this evening? So this is for something not on the agenda this evening, correct?
Not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. State your name.
Thank you.
And
My
address for
name
the-
is Sarah Gustafson. I live at 10808 Northeast 154th Place, and I'm here to talk about the future of my neighborhood, which is Lower Norway Hill, right next to the Brickyard Park and Ride. My husband and I love having a bus stop within walking distance of our home, and in the future, there's going to be a high-capacity station built there for the bus rapid transit on I-405. We are thrilled about this, at least according to the most recent sound transit plan shared by our deputy mayor, because my husband and I want to see a more complete neighborhood around the Brickyard Park and Ride. We'd like to see more housing there, more businesses, so that people can work there and then take the bus home, or live somewhere else and then take the bus to work at Brickyard. And of course, making Brickyard into a complete neighborhood is going to involve a lot. It's going to involve the transit agencies, also a lot of research, probably a master plan. But I think the Planning Commission and the planners have made a great start by recommending the 160th and Juanita area for the multifamily tax exemption. Not to get too much into that right now, but for these housing incentives, we really need to prioritize places like Brickyard, places like Canyon Park, and places along the upcoming transit lines. And there are a lot of folks here, like Amanda and Carrie and me, who want to see this kind of transit-oriented development close to home. I think maybe people of here have heard the slogan YIMBY, which stands for Yes in My Backyard. I think it's time to update the slogan. It should be Yes in My Brickyard, or rather Yes in Our Brickyard. And as a resident of this neighborhood, I think we need more neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else for anything not on the agenda this evening?
My name is Kerry Westerbeck. I live at 9803 Northeast 183rd Street, Bothell. This is non-agenda related, but for about 9 months now, I've been gathering with other people in Bothell to participate in a group we call Bothellites, or People-Oriented Places, BOPOP for short. You guys might have heard about it, might not. And it's really based on, in a nutshell, a lot more than I could capture in 3 minutes, but it's based around the idea of traditional development, like we did pre-World War II. The idea that we shaped our cities, they shaped us, and we let things happen more organically as they occurred. And there are so many things that go into that. New urbanism is a philosophy that also ties into that. But just wanted to introduce myself and our group to you guys. We've got some cards I'll give to you. And I've got a great introductory article that is not ours. It just came out yesterday, but I thought it really encapsulated well a lot of the issues that we at BOPOP are trying to deal with here in Bothell. And so I'll pass these out to you and, keep them, recycle them, whatever you like, but here you go. You'll hear more from us. We're going to be down here regularly advocating for a lot of ideas that I don't think get talked about very much in Bothell. A lot of people come down and complain and say, keep everything as it is. And it's not natural for cities to stay as they are. They are always evolving and changing, and they have for thousands of years. So it's very unnatural to keep a really cute neighborhood like Lower Maywood, like Pat's, for example, just exactly as it is forever under amber in glass. It's not normal. We've never done that as human beings for thousands of years. So we need to thoughtfully, incrementally change, and we also need to empower Bothell residents to help with the affordable housing by allowing them to be small developers, turn their houses into duplex, things like that. We need to allow the next increment of development in Bothell so we can help Bothell meet its targets. But I'll pass these out, and I'll have some comments later for the public hearing as well.
Thank you, Mr. Westerbeck. Thanks, Gary. Cool. Great. Thanks.
Gary, can we get one? Can I have that?
If there's anybody else who wants to speak to something not on the agenda this evening? Okay, I don't see any other folks to speak to something not on the agenda. With that, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 4th.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'd second that motion.
All those in favor of approving minutes from September 4th, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously with all commissioners present. Looks like we do not have any report from council tonight. And with that, we will go ahead and move straight into the public hearing.
Can I have a moment?
Yes.
So I don't want to throw this public hearing off, but when I read one of the letters from Sound Transit, it kind of brought some concern to me. As many of you know, I work for Sound Transit, and I've recently taken a new role in the Office of Capital Project Delivery, and it makes me think there may be a perceived conflict of interest right here, and I would love to have some time to reach out to our legal, given my new role, before I would be part of this, understanding that would eliminate the quorum tonight, and for that I apologize. But I don't want the perceived conflict of interest, so I'm wondering what the process is here. I hadn't thought about it until I read the letter on the dais, so sorry about that.
And unfortunately, I haven't checked with our attorney. I didn't think about that either. I'm not sure if you recusing yourself from this item, since we started the meeting with a quorum and you're technically still here, you would need to leave the room if you're recusing yourself from this item. But I don't know that we necessarily lose a quorum in that case.
Okay. And when I first, when I first applied to this and was given the privilege to serve, we went through this with the city attorney at the time and with legal at Sound Transit, determined my role there would not cause a, significant issue.
Right.
And then we'd just be mindful of it, but there's a gray area here, so.
No, and I think it's better to err on the side of caution, and I appreciate you raising that. Find something on quorums here.
I'm sorry that I can't give any more guidance on this. I definitely can't speak to that, but thanks for bringing it up. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
However, fortunately, we do have two items for the
Yeah,
2019
certainly.
plan amendment, so you can certainly act on one of those, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, yeah. I'm not trying to get out of tonight's meeting, I'm just trying to serve the people well and protect
Yes.
everybody's interest.
So if I might, I would recommend
Yes.
that we continue as shown on the agenda with the public hearing, have a
Okay.
discussion about the CFP first, so that Commissioner Hampton can be present for that, and then he can recuse himself from the rest of the discussion on the minimum density and intensity, and then come back for the MFTE discussion, if that would be okay. And I'm still checking to see if I can find something more definitive. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I seem to recall reading somewhere that if you start the meeting with the quorum, this does not disqualify. If you were to leave for the rest of the meeting, then yes, I believe we lose the quorum, but in this case, I don't think we do.
Okay.
But
So
I'm not an attorney and I don't play one on television.
it sounds like we could continue forward with this, with the realization that none of us, have a true legal understanding exactly, but we're just going along with
Yes,
what we feel is best and what is correct. And
and I'll follow.
and
with-
Jason's making a statement, he's being very open about it, so, Mr. Hampton, so.
Yeah, and I will follow up with the city attorney tomorrow and get a more definitive answer on that. And then as a precaution, what the commission may want to do, and we're anticipating this might be a possibility anyway, is continue this to your first meeting in November.
Okay,
Continue the public hearing, I mean.
okay. I would be open to that. The commission probably would too. By then, we'd be able to get maybe more clarification on it, so.
And in fact, this letter from Sound Transit does request the hearing be continued to November.
And I apologize, it was at the bottom, I should have seen it, I didn't even see, it. I haven't read the letter, I have it now, but I didn't read it, I do apologize.
The last bullet.
Okay. Well, it does seem to give a little bit of guidance there, but I'll leave that to direction maybe of staff who've been through a lot more meetings like this than I have, so. But with that, should we go ahead and proceed into are we in the 2019 comprehensive plan amendments?
Yep.
Okay, we'll be led by Senior Planner Bruce Blackburn.
Right. Of course, the first one we'll talk about is the capital facilities amendments. We've already had some discussion about this in your study session. This is very straightforward. This basically addresses an issue that we had when the public safety bond was approved and the capital facilities plan was implemented, but our capital facilities element in the comprehensive plan needs to be consistent with those two items. So very basic information. We just kind of updated some of the data within the background information. We really don't have to change any of the policies. The policy as it is adequate. I do know at the study session, the commission said, look, maybe you can have some fire department representatives come in. We have a couple of questions, and I have done that, and they are here. So if you have any questions for me about the element itself, please feel free. Or if you have some questions about some of the other items, we can certainly ask the fire personnel who are here. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you for joining us this evening.
You bet. And just for the record, I don't believe I've met all of you, but I'm Deputy Chief Doug McDonald of Operations for City of Bothell Fire.
Thank you.
With that, I would propose the commission deliberate or ask questions or anything of those kind of items that you so desire.
Okay. Commissioner Curd.
One of the questions that came up previously was during the interim, this doesn't really have to do with the capital facilities element, but during the interim construction period, how are operations going to change at the fire stations?
Well, for sure, we've through OAC and through our contractor and our architects, part of the RFQ and some of the requests was to help determine locations where we would have operational efficiencies and where we could put our people to continue the operations of the fire department. Station 45, which is out on Kenyon Park, that is going to prove difficult to use the same lot just due to its stamp size right now. It's pretty small and doesn't facilitate allowing us to be on that site. So we are out looking at other options along with the contractor and the architects. Part of their process is to help us define and find those locations. Station 42, the downtown firehouse, that could provide us some opportunity to access and utilize part of that property for building a trailer. I say trailer large, it's going to have to outfit, at least 5 people operating out of that. So we are looking at some options, but right now we all know the market, we all know the area, and it is going to be difficult. We are taking into account our response times and how that would impact. There may be increase in some and decrease in others depending on where we go, but we are utilizing what we call heat maps and have given them some parameters as to where they need to keep us in a general area so that our response times stay consistent. Currently, our response times are required by law. 90% of the time we have to go with our Washington Administrative Code, which stipulates 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Even with our current locations, that we don't meet those numbers 90% of the time. And so we're really taking that into consideration when we replace our temporary quarters. One of the benefits from potentially running concurrently between those two facilities and having them pretty much going at the same time is it shaves off, could shave off a period of time. I've heard up to 6 months of time, which would get us back into the permanent facilities quicker and less impact to the public and to the firefighters operating at those stations.
Thanks.
You bet.
Another question. The level of service that you mentioned, is that a Washington State guideline, or is that determined by city?
It's determined by authority having jurisdiction. So the city, we presented to the city, and I don't recall exactly the time frame, how long ago the 715 came into place, but that was what was presented to the city. We have to reply and tell the city or tell the state what we want our standard to be 90% of the time. It's a goal that we strive to, and we have to provide a report card yearly to them on that. And so right now, roughly, I believe it's 8 minutes and 13 seconds for average medical throughout the entire city, and just shy of, for a fire response, just shy of 9 minutes total from time you pick up the phone to the time you have a fire engine on scene fighting fire. So that's where we're at right now.
And my recollection is that one of the areas where the level of service is more challenged is in the Norway Hill area towards the south end. And I believe I asked about coordination with other jurisdictions. Is that something you're looking at to enhance level of service down there?
Absolutely, sir. So as we do right now, we operate within the Zone 1, and that covers from Bellevue to Shoreline and all those fire departments within that. We have automatic aid and mutual aid agreements with Snohomish County Fire Departments, and then within King County, we have automatic aid, all dispatched by one agency. So we also utilize AVL, which is automatic vehicle locators, and so the dispatch center is able to ascertain who is the closest vehicle. It may be a Bothell call over off, say, Northeast 160th and 405. A Bothell unit may not be the closest. It may be a closer unit from Kirkland or Woodinville. And in that case, due to the severity of the type of call, they would dispatch that closer unit versus a Bothell unit because they need a CPR, a structure fire, something to that effect, that needs immediate closest vehicle. That's where that would come from. So we are currently doing that in our operations, and we would continue to do that throughout the process of the remodel or the reconstruction.
Thank you.
You bet.
Great. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you for your service. It's an important topic. And so there's no action required on our end. Is that correct?
So I've just looked into the Planning Commission's bylaws to see if that gave us any direction. The only statement that it makes is that a quorum consists of 4 members. It doesn't elaborate beyond that. So my recommendation, given that limited definition of a quorum, is that you take no testimony or other action at this point on the other item under the comp plan amendments, and just vote to continue the public hearing to the November 6th meeting.
Okay. And would you like us to break this part off and go ahead and vote on this part with regards to capital facilities? Or do you want to?
Do you want to do that now, or
Yes,
should they be done together?
Well, you can, that's a good question. They are one plan amendment, so in theory, they should be done together. But as long as nobody has any big questions, so my packet will be easy next time, that would be great.
I think that would be helpful for us because we may have a different makeup of the commission next time. So if this group wants to make a recommendation on the CFP portion, and we can bring that back to the commission and get a confirmation of the commission next time. So yes, if you would vote on that, that would be helpful.
Would that look like a motion, or would it just be a 4 nods or 3 nods or 2, whatever nods you'd need? How would that look, or how would that be read?
It should probably be a motion. We should have a motion on this aspect of the 2019 plan amendments, and then when we get to the number 6, we have the other one, we'll maybe do a more uniform or holistic type of an emotion as well. Motion.
Okay, so you're looking for a motion to continue the public hearing to November?
No, looking for a motion on capital facilities and element.
Yeah.
Right.
portion, yes.
Oh, got it, okay,
On the, yes, just on the capital facilities portion of the comp plan amendments.
okay.
So I would move that the commission approve the amendments as presented in the staff report, October 2nd staff report regarding capital facilities plan amendment as written.
I would second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion with regards to the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstains? The motion carries with all commissioners present and Commissioners Kabe, Pystrip, and Moreau Cook absent and excused.
Thank you.
And now if we could have a motion on the, continuing the public hearing to November 6th.
I move to extend the public hearing on minimum density and intensity plan and code amendments to
November 6th.
Wednesday, November 6th, 2019.
Second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion on the table? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously with all four commissioners present.
Thank you.
Thank you. With apologies to those who came for the public hearing this
Yeah.
evening. We didn't anticipate this. But again, thank you for
Yeah, it was great.
Commissioner Hampton.
Yeah,
for
thank you for bringing that,
Sorry.
keeping that clear.
If I'd seen the letter before I got here, I would have tried ahead of time.
We just got it.
Okay, and so with that, we will, and again, apologies to people who showed up, and I thought we were going to, for that part of the public hearing. Move that, we'll go ahead and move into the study session. And we'll be, let's see. Led by Senior Planner David Boyd from the City of Bothell.
Thank you and good evening. I just have a short presentation. This item that we're dealing with are multifamily tax exemption, and specifically the issue before Planning Commission are the target areas. The primary code amendments to enable Bothell to begin a program of multifamily tax exemption is going to be most likely an amendment to our Revenue and Finance section of the code in Title 3, which is not part of Planning Commission's purview. And we're joined now by Mike Stanger of Arch, who is really our expert on that issue. The issue that we wanted to get some input from Planning Commission is simply not about establishing the program itself, but what the target areas should be, because that is a land use issue. So I just have a brief examination, and we've really just started to do this analysis ourselves. So the idea, the thinking is that that generated this analysis is that affordable housing, multifamily tax exemptions give just that, a tax exemption to multifamily developers, and the ones that were initiated by council have to do with those that promote affordable housing. So the state law allows for tax exemptions for 12 years for developers that meet certain targets for affordable housing. And so since it is targeted at affordable housing, the logical places for those are multifamily zones, of course, and those with good transit access and with good access to services. Those are the same as our activity centers that are identified in the economic development element of our comprehensive plan, and they're shown on this map here. So that's where we started our analysis, and then we, from the activity centers, we looked at removing any non-multifamily areas within those activity centers, and then potentially, and this is one of the areas we'd like your input on, adding multifamily areas that are contiguous, adjacent and contiguous with these activity centers. So that's what we put in your packet and what I'd like to run through with you here tonight. So I'm calling these our initial proposal for the target areas. And in no particular order, but except starting with our regional activity centers, which are the North Creek Activity Center and the Canyon Park Activity Center. North Creek, the activity center and the adjacent multifamily zones are shown here in the blue shaded area, which essentially consists of all of the what's known as the business parks within North Creek, and a kind of a finger of multifamily zoning that extends up Fitzgerald Avenue along 405. Really doesn't have much developable land, maybe one parcel. And then there's also a multifamily area in the oop. Let me see if I can get back. In the southeast. Be careful about which buttons I push here in our new remote. So that's area number one, and we are getting proposals for new multifamily housing in that area now, and anticipate more in the future. So this is an area where we could have some impact. Then Canyon Park is the other regional activity center, and this map shows the multifamily zones within the Canyon Park Regional Growth Center and multifamily zones adjacent to that extend into Thrasher's Corner, which is a community activity center, and into the southwest portion of Canyon Park, which is also a community activity center. And again, another sort of finger extending to the southeast, again down Fitzgerald Avenue, that is multifamily zoned. So that's number two, and we can come back to these as we go along, and feel free to jump in with questions about any of these as we go. So the third community activity center is downtown, and here this map shows the campus and the single-family Sunrise Valley View, and the cemetery are shaded out, so those would not be within the target area. But here the target area could extend to multifamily zoning to the north of the sub-area into Lower Maywood Hill, the R2800 and R4000 zoning there, and the multifamily, the R2800 zoning along Bothell Way to the north of downtown. And we could also, in identifying this target area, we could include the contiguous multifamily zoning to the south of the Sammamish River that has R2800 zoning and R4000 zoning that's also outlined in yellow. Both of those areas are outlined in yellow. So those are options. Another option, if we didn't want to extend across the river, it would probably make sense just to take all of the parks and public open space zoning along the river out of the target area. And then we have the Activities Center, which includes the Red Barn Village Special District and the former Country Village along Bothell Everett Highway and at the intersection of 240th. Again, there is significant multifamily development there now, and there are other parts of this that are likely to develop in the future. So that seemed like an opportunity area. Similarly, we heard earlier about Brickyard Road, and that is another area that we're considering. Much of the multifamily zoning there is built out, but there is an opportunity over time, maybe not immediately, for transit-oriented development around and possibly on the park and ride site there in Brickyard Road. So that this could be an opportunity area as well.
Can I ask a question about the 240th Bothell Everett Highway area?
Oh, sure.
Is there a reason that the properties, I think it's the Sons of Norway, the Knights of Columbus building and the Lake Pleasant are not included in this? I only ask because they're access from Bothell Everett Highway as well, not from the upper neighborhood.
The only reason they're not included is they're not, well, the Sons of Norway is included. That would be just...
Okay, that's north. I can't remember the name of that hall that's Knights of Columbus just south of...
Yeah, Knights of Columbus
yeah.
down by Lake Pleasant. That's not zoned multifamily, so
Okay.
it would not be subject. Now, and these target areas, they can be identified as, in a way that as if there are upzones and new multifamily zones added adjacent to these areas, they could
Okay,
become part of those target areas.
thanks.
Brickyard again. And then the final one that we looked at and are recommending not be included is there's a small neighborhood activity center. So far, all of these ones that we've been looking at are community activity centers. Neighborhood activity centers are smaller. The one at Juanita Woodinville Way and 145th on the south border of downtown, of Bothell, does have a small R2800 zone adjacent to a neighborhood business zone, but it's pretty much fully developed. We don't see much development opportunity here unless there was some upzoning or an addition of residential designation added to the neighborhood business zone. So we don't think this is a likely one now, but could be a candidate in the future. Nike Hill is another one that neighborhood activity center that currently has no multifamily zoning. Their planning commission did make some recommendations for upzones there, and again, if those do go through, then that could be added as well. So, if there are any other clarifying questions, I'd be happy to entertain those. And then here, again, this is the map that shows the 5 activity centers that staff is recommending that you consider in forwarding a recommendation to council for their consideration.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So it's a study session, so please just ask questions away.
So 2 questions, one more point of clarification. We talk about basic services. How are those defined?
I don't know that we actually define them in the code, but I'm thinking groceries, at least a convenience store would be the minimal, I would say, in terms of that. Ideally, there'd be groceries, drugstore, those kind of basic services.
Okay. The reason I ask is North Creek seems a little light on services. There's a gas station, convenience store, and there's, what is it, Stop and Shop or whatever's changed all the way down at the bottom near Home Depot.
Right.
But it's a big area without a lot going on, and just a question there. My other, I guess more of a comment than a question, just to confirm my understanding and perhaps to get it on the record. that this multifamily tax exemption does not change the zoning. So it doesn't allow people to do things that they're not otherwise permitted to do as far as development, correct?
That's correct.
It simply encourages, when that is done, to include a low-income element to it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought, but I wanted to be explicit.
And the requirement is that 20% of the units be target low income of a certain range, similar to what we instituted in the with the 522 rezone in downtown.
Yes.
Yeah, so on that, just the income level, so we're going to be, that we'll be talking about in future sessions with regards to what those numbers will be, correct?
That will be part of the discussion at council. We were focusing this discussion really just on the land use aspects of this.
Okay.
And Mike can speak to the target levels and what state code requires better than I.
Yeah.
Another maybe question that I'm interested in hearing, maybe what you might have to say later, would be there was some discussion in council a while back about affordable housing in Bothell being mainly targeted towards senior affordable care and housing. Is the MFTE geared specifically towards a certain age group, or is it just it's just market decides? Is that?
I'm not aware of any targeting towards any demographic group.
Yeah, I'm not aware that that's been done. It's always been for all populations. It's just limited by income.
Quick question, Dave, on your map here, I see the star is at the top of the Canyon Park area. Is that supposed to be crossing over to the Thrasher's Corner Community Activity Center? So it's both of those areas?
Yes, it is, and it does extend into the in the activity center map, the shopping area
It's this.
in the southwest portion of Canyon Park is classified as a community activity center, even though it is part of the regional growth center.
So that's really encompassing 3 different areas right there? Okay.
3 different activity centers.
Thanks. Can you, is there, I guess this is a question for Arch, I guess. Is there a particular town you think that's doing is a good example currently of MFTEs that you think is, I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to, like, but if, or a couple?
Well, of those towns that we work with that have MFTE, those that have the most projects with the exemptions are Kirkland and Redmond. Redmond's relatively new, and they have 4 MFTE projects exempted right now. And they have 3 areas, their downtown area, the Marymore area, south and east of downtown, and then the Overlake area in the south end. Kirkland has virtually every multifamily area of Kirkland has an MFTE designation on it. They have, I want to say 5 projects. No, it might be more than that. I might be forgetting a couple. They've had it longer, but they've been pretty successful, especially around the Totem Lake area now is starting to, that there's getting more housing there. And we've got a number in the pipeline. Bellevue also recently adopted MFTE. They have, maybe you can help me, I think 4 targeted areas. The only projects they've had so far take it are in the downtown area. So there are 2 under contract right now.
Okay, thank you.
So, assuming that this goes forward and is approved and the MFTE process is initiated in the city of Bothell. How is that going to be administered going forward? So there are a number of projects, 20% of their units are targeted as affordable housing, and it's for a period of time, too. Isn't it 20 years, did I see? Or
8 to 12.
12 years, 12 years, okay. So for 12 years, these units are going to be designated for affordable housing. How is the program going to be administered to be sure that during that 12-year period, they are made available to people who meet those qualifications?
We would administer them the same way that we do in the other cities. Some projects have MFTE and some of them are just land use requirements. But they're all done in a pretty similar way on an ongoing basis. It's a process of annual compliance reports where they report to us all of the affordable units, their occupants, their household incomes, what their expenses are, and so forth, and we just verify that they are following the guidelines.
So the city will partner with Arch going forward to ensure compliance
Yes.
by the property owners.
And I would also add, we're looking into, the tax exemption is for 12 years. We're looking into the possibility of a longer affordability requirement, possibly the life of the project. So we still need to do a little more research on that, but the tax exemption is for 12 years.
Thank you. So again, the specific question for the commission here is with regards to the boundaries that are being considered. And these other issues, while we're interested, they're not particularly within our purview. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think you did a really good job of laying these out and kind of showing us what the options are. Kind of at first glance, I think that these are the right spots to consider for a multifamily tax exemption. I think one of the things you want to look for is access to transit and access to upcoming projects that we have. And for that reason, at first, I was curious about the 240th, but with the very, high likelihood that the Swift line will be extended to Bothell, then that'll be on the Swift Green line, in the future when these projects come online or if these projects come online. So I think that it'll be a good kind of a transit network to get people to the 405 and the 522 BRTs and to other parts of the region. So I think with the starred boxes there, I would support sending those to council. I don't see any reason to exclude any. The last one that you showed that you said you didn't recommend, I'm not familiar with the area, but it doesn't look like it's well served by transit. And I think when you're thinking about affordable housing and adding units, I think that you want to go for the low-hanging fruit first and try to find the best places, and then look elsewhere when you need to.
So if you back up.
What's that?
Previous
Oh, to the previous one?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
The overall view.
Oh, sorry. That one. So it has a 7-Eleven store, I believe it is, a convenience store, and then the small R2800 development.
Yeah, Commissioner Kiernan, your comment with regards to North Creek earlier was interesting too, with the amount of space and the lack of shopping for, say, groceries. But I guess that's one reason. But it is on a transit line that you could take to potential other areas, I guess, to shop.
That's right. In fact, the 522 BRT will serve North Creek.
Okay.
And I would add to that, and I'm glad you brought that up again. I think that there's a lot of commercial space down there. It's just maybe not the most utilized commercial space. There's that home goods center, the home improvement store there that we all know is pretty massive, and there's a lot of parking there that could be maybe redeveloped for more of a neighborhood type of business in the future, or businesses. And I don't know what the zoning is there, but I think there's a fair amount of commercial space down there. It's just not something near, maybe it's not perfect now, but I think there's opportunity is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of space. And then with the You mentioned there was something with regards to the Seattle Times building property. Was that on a different topic maybe, or was that the minimum density? I don't know, but with regards to what's going along with that property, because that is a huge parcel of land.
Yes, there are several parcels that are part of the Seattle Times ownership. There are 2 projects that are in the pipeline right now through the city permitting process, review process for townhomes on the north and south ends of where the main building is located. We've also had recently a pre-application on the building parcel itself, and that's all residential, and we've raised the same issue in staff when we talk about the lack of services in that area. So we will be having a conversation with the potential developer of that middle site at least about maybe doing some more potentially mixed-use type development in there. Because right now, all 3 combined, we're looking at about 1,100 units.
Okay, and pretty tough traffic over there already, so,
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be a good addition.
So I agree with Commissioner Hampton that the areas identified are good and appropriate. The other question you had was regarding extending the boundaries, particularly in the downtown area, and the question of the parks and public open space on Sammamish. Again, in the context that this does not change the zoning, it doesn't allow anything that's not currently allowed, it's just how it's done, I would support extending the MFTE to the north, and it seems to just make sense to exclude the parks and public open space. I don't have a strong opinion about the southern portion on Sammamish River.
So, and I guess the option I was saying, if we do want to include the R2800 and R4000 zoning along the south side, mostly along the south side of the river, also in Brackett's Landing, it would probably make sense to leave the riverfront parks and open space within it. It really has no impact on it, but it would just makes a cleaner boundary area. And then the only areas that we would take out then would be the campus and the single family zoning and the parks,
cemetery,
public open space within that area.
Okay.
I think I echo the other commissioners when I say that all the areas indicated are the best places to target multifamily tax exemption. In terms of downtown, I live in a multifamily area downtown in the yellow, and I think that there is moderate redevelopment potential there. So I think that would be an area that should be lumped in. In terms of the south of downtown, I don't see why adding it would be prohibitive. I'm not sure about mobile home park redevelopment opportunities, if that would be, if that would maybe accelerate the process of redevelopment of those, the one along 522 and then the other mobile home park adjacent to the interstate. I'm not sure. So if the MFTE would accelerate redevelopment potential of those sites, I'd want to look at it a little bit more closely before making a decision about going forward with that. There's just a lot of interesting dynamic with mobile home parks and redevelopment of those, even though it would still have a component of low income and affordable housing. I don't know if, I don't know.
I concur with you on that, Commissioner Curd. I also agree with regards to that. Thank you for pointing that out with regards to the mobile home park area. That's definitely something for me to consider too.
One thing to change any of those mobile home park overlays, those are part of the zoning and which is incorporated in the comprehensive plan. So that would be a comprehensive plan amendment. So it would go through quite a bit of scrutiny. And discussions to date have been that it would likely require redevelopment to provide an equal amount of affordable housing as the existing parks do. And MFT might help make that pencil for a developer, but I don't think adding them to the MFT target areas does significantly would accelerate that happening.
Thanks for that clarification. With that being said, I support adding the southern portion to the MFTE exemption.
Great. Does anybody else have any thoughts with regards to the, before we wrap it up? Okay. All right. Great. Well, thanks Dave for bringing that to us tonight. And thanks for Arch being here tonight, Mike Stanger. Appreciate it. Old business tonight?
I know. I
Yes.
would say
Oh, sorry, Dave.
we don't have a date set for when this goes to council, but we'll certainly let you know
Okay.
when that does happen.
Okay, thank you.
And the sense then would be from the commission that we support moving forward with these expanded to the yellow lines. I think that's.
That seems to be the
Hearing, yeah.
opinion of the commission.
Thank you.
No old business reports from staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things this evening. A couple of things I put on your on the desk packet in front of you. One, just received this afternoon a flyer from the city of Kenmore. They're hosting a workshop speaker. I kept a copy, now if I can find it. The Missing Middle, Reconsidering Small Housing Types from the Past, on Tuesday, October 15th at 7 p.m. at Kenmore City Hall. So they're going to have a panel of developers and architects talking about that. It looks like it might be an interesting discussion.
October 15th?
October 15th, yes.
Okay.
And so, and I'm assuming that is also on the Kenmore website if they want to, folks want to take a look at that. So that's for your information. The updated attendance sheet also in front of you. The next meeting of the commission is going to be on November 6th. We have 4 meetings left this year, maximum, depending on what we do in December. So just putting that out there. For the item that was continued, the public hearing that was continued to November 6th, we are scheduled currently to go to City Council on December 3rd with the recommendation on the comprehensive plan amendments, all of the comprehensive plan amendments. So we will be looking for action from you on that item on the November
Sounds good.
6th meeting. That will be important for us to stay on that schedule, and because it is the annual amendment, we need to get it done by the end of the year. Also, we are...
Quick question.
Yes.
For this meeting in Kenmore, I'm going to assume you'd like to hear how many of us would be in attendance?
Yes,
so
thank
if
you.
there is a quorum issue arising?
Yes, for that reminder. Thank you very much for that. Yes, please, let us know if you are planning on attending so we can do proper public notification of that. We are also looking at a joint meeting with the Landmark Preservation Board at your November 20th meeting. So this is your regular meeting. Sarah Desimone, the preservation consultant that we have on board, has been polling the Landmark Preservation Board, and I believe we have 5 of the 6 members that are available on the 20th. The purpose of that joint meeting is to review the Title 22 amendments that we have been working on for the last couple of years now. We're going to be briefing the board on that at their meeting in October, and then we want to bring it to the 2 boards combined to go over those items that are specific to one of the amendments we did in the housekeeping amendments, you may recall just recently, was there are certain title sections of the code that would require consultation with other boards and commissions. You are actually a consulting commission to the Landmark Preservation Board on amendments to Title 22. They're the ones that will make the recommendation to the council but we'll be looking for the commission to provide some input into those items that fall more into the land use and planning purview. So that'll be a portion of your meeting on the 20th. We'll probably do that initially, and then have the board adjourn so that they can, I think they're also talking about having their regular meeting in another room that night, so they would then leave and we would continue on with the Planning Commission's business. And then finally, just to let you know, we did submit a grant application to the Department of Commerce. This is under House Bill 1923 that I think we've spoken about before. There are several items in there that are listed under that legislation that there is funding available if we want to do those things. Many of them we've already done. So there were a couple that we identified that we thought would be helpful to develop in terms of providing additional housing, particularly affordable housing. And they're both within the housing strategy that the council adopted last year. One of those is to increase the number of lots allowed in our short plat from 4 to 9. That's already allowed under state law. We just have not done that, so this would give us the resources to make those amendments. The other would be to look at adding duplexes on corner lots in single-family areas. So that's the other piece of that application that we've submitted. And obviously, both of those would be coming to the Planning Commission if we get that funding. We should know I believe by the end of this month if we're going to get that funding. And we would start that work in the new year as part of the docket for 2020. And I believe that's all I had, unless you have any other questions for staff this evening.
I have one item to add to the staff report. Just to report that council did pass the Planning Commission recommendation on the nursing home code amendments last night.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. All right, any member reports? Okay, then with that, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.